An interpretation of the selfish gene. A captivating exploration of the gene mystery. Why does a peacock display its dazzling tail despite the energy cost? Why do ants willingly sacrifice themselves for their queen? The Selfish Gene, a globally influential science classic, overturns our understanding of life's essence, revealing the secrets of biological behavior through the lens of genes. This book is not just a scientific adventure but also a mirror reflecting humanity and society. In Richard Dawkins' prose, genes are no longer mere chemical molecules but the selfish players of life, orchestrating every step of evolution from single cells to humans. First published in 1976, it has sold over 10 million copies worldwide, been translated into dozens of languages, and become a milestone in evolutionary biology. Why has it captivated readers across generations? Let's dive into the world of genes to uncover the profound logic of life. Genes, the invisible players of life. Where does life come from? To grasp the core of the selfish gene, we must start with the fundamental unit: genes. Genes are segments of DNA, carrying hereditary information, acting like a miniature instruction manual, guiding cells to build proteins that shape an organism's form and behavior. Dawkins writes in the book, "We are survival machines for genes, through which they perpetuate themselves." This provocative idea flips traditional views of life, shifting focus from individual organisms to the microscopic designers behind the scenes: genes. Dawkins argues that genes are not passive hereditary fragments but active strategists, manipulating biological processes to maximize their own survival. This perspective redefines evolution, suggesting that whether it's a single-celled amoeba, a massive elephant, or an intelligent human, organisms are merely temporary vessels for genes in the arena of natural selection. For instance, the bioluminescence of jellyfish is a gene-driven strategy, where glowing genes help deter predators or attract prey, ensuring the gene's transmission to the next generation. This isn't a conscious choice by the jellyfish but a strategy honed by genes over billions of years of evolution. In humans, genes influence not just visible traits like height or eye color but also subtle characteristics like risk-taking behavior, which likely boosted survival odds in prehistoric environments. In the 1990s, behavioral geneticist Robert Plomin found that about 50% of personality traits, like extroversion or conscientiousness, have a genetic basis, showing genes' profound impact on both body and decision-making. However, genetic determinism is not absolute. Environmental factors like nutrition or social upbringing interact dynamically with genes, a process known as epigenetics. For example, identical twins with the same genes may develop different traits if raised in different environments, indicating that genes propose possibilities but don't fully control destiny. Dawkins' survival machine metaphor thus frames life as a delicate balance between genetic instructions and external influences, a theme that runs throughout the book, challenging us to rethink our place in the biological narrative. This seemingly cold statement captures the selfish nature of genes. Their ultimate goal is self-replication. Imagine, about 3.8 billion years ago, in Earth's primordial soup, molecules collided randomly, forming self-replicating chemical structures. These replicators were the starting point of life, constantly refining themselves through competition, gradually evolving into complex genes. In the 19th century, Austrian monk Gregor Mendel uncovered the laws of inheritance through pea plant experiments, providing evidence for the existence of genes. He observed that traits like green or yellow peas were passed down in fixed ratios, hypothesizing the existence of hereditary factors: genes. Though ignored in his time, Mendel's work laid the foundation for 20th century genetics. Dawkins extends this discovery, proposing that genes are not just carriers of inheritance but the protagonists of evolution. What does selfish mean? It's not moral selfishness but refers to genes prioritizing their own survival during replication. For example, a honeybee's stinger leads to its own death, but by protecting the hive, the stinger gene persists in relatives. This selfish logic runs through the history of life, driving evolution from single cells to humans. Dawkins uses an analogy: genes are like programmers, organisms are computers running their code, and natural selection is the mechanism that selects the best code. The selfishness of genes also manifests in mutations and diversity. Mutations are random errors in gene replication, most harmful, but a few offer chances to adapt to new environments. For instance, the sickle cell anemia gene mutation in Africa causes disease but also confers resistance to malaria. This gene persists in malaria-prone regions, showcasing how selfish genes survive through trade-offs. Understanding the role of genes reveals the underlying logic of life's evolution. The survival game of replicators. How do genes survive over billions of years? Dawkins uses the concept of replicators to explain this process. Genes are information carriers, aiming to perpetuate themselves through replication in the next generation. Natural selection is like a screening game, where only the most efficient replicators prevail. Take bacteria as an example. In 1928, when Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin, bacteria had not yet evolved resistance. Decades later, antibiotic-resistant bacteria became a global medical challenge. The World Health Organization reported in 2003 that resistant infections claim hundreds of thousands of lives annually. This is a victory for genes in the replication race. Resistant genes survive and spread through natural selection. Dawkins also introduces the evolutionarily stable strategy (ESS), describing how genes find balance in competition. The evolutionarily stable strategy (ESS), derived from game theory, provides a mathematical framework for understanding why certain behaviors become entrenched in populations. An ESS is a behavioral pattern that, once adopted by most members of a population, cannot be displaced by alternative strategies because it yields the highest reproductive success, even against rare mutants. Take the territorial defense of European robins as an example. Male robins sing loudly to ward off rivals and defend their territory. This gene-driven behavior is an ESS because it secures resources like food and mates, offsetting the energy costs of singing or fighting. If a mutant robin abandons this strategy, it may fail to secure resources or mates, and its genes will fade away. Dawkins further explains with the hawk-dove model, the hawk strategy. Aggressive resource competition dominates in a population of doves, conflict avoiders. But too many hawks lead to costly conflicts, allowing doves to persist, resulting in a mixed ESS balancing aggression and restraint. This model applies not only to animals, but also to human social dynamics. In workplace competition, aggressive hawks may achieve short-term success, but persistent aggression alienates colleagues, giving cooperative doves an edge. In 2015, organizational psychologist Adam Grant found that in collaborative settings, givers who share resources often outperform takers, suggesting an ESS balance in human groups. ESS also applies to ecosystems. In coral reefs, cleaner fish remove parasites from larger fish, gaining food while the larger fish gain health. This mutualistic behavior is an ESS because both benefit, but if one cheats, for example, cleaner fish stealing mucus, long-term cooperation may collapse, harming both. Through these examples, Dawkins emphasizes that ESS is a dynamic balance genes achieve in long-term competition, shaping the diversity and stability of biological behaviors. Take the male peacock's tail. Its vibrant feathers increase predation risk but persist due to female preference. Females choose males with brighter tails, so the genes for elaborate tails dominate in reproduction, forming a stable strategy. This strategy echoes in human society. Ancient royalty used lavish clothing to display power, attracting allies and mates, much like modern luxury cars or designer brands. ESS isn't limited to sexual selection but also shapes resource allocation. In lion prides, a male kills the cubs of his predecessor to ensure resources for his own offspring. Though seemingly cruel, this reflects the selfish gene's logic. Prioritizing its own transmission increases. Dawkins stresses that ESS is a dynamic balance genes achieve in long-term competition, shaping diverse biological behaviors. Another example is plant competition. South America's Brazil nut tree relies on specific bees for pollination, and its tough fruit can only be opened by a few animals. This exclusive strategy, though risky, ensures gene transmission by limiting competitors. Through these cases, Dawkins shows that gene selfishness isn't simple greed but a sophisticated strategy for optimal solutions in complex environments. The genetic code of altruism. If genes are selfish, why do organisms exhibit altruistic behavior? Ants sacrifice for their queen, and humans donate to strangers actions that seem to contradict gene interests. Dawkins unravels this mystery with the theory of kin selection. Altruistic behavior ultimately serves gene replication. Take ants, forgo reproduction to protect the queen and larvae because they share most of their genes with her. In the 1960s, British biologist William Hamilton proposed Hamilton's rule: altruism persists when its cost is lower than the benefit to related genes' replication. Dawkins writes, genes perpetuate themselves indirectly through kin, even at the cost of individual sacrifice. This insight reveals the biological roots of altruism, dismantling the illusion of selflessness. Kin selection's core is that genes spread by aiding relatives who carry the same genes. For example, prairie dogs emit warning calls when predators approach, risking their own lives but protecting relatives, thus increasing shared gene survival. In the 1980s, biologist Paul Sherman's studies on prairie dogs confirmed that warning behaviors are more frequent in kin-dense groups, supporting Hamilton's rule. In human societies, kin selection shapes family behavior. In East Asian cultures, filial piety emphasizes devotion to parents, not just a cultural norm but a gene-driven strategy to ensure offspring survival through parental investment. Parents provide resources or sacrifice personal interests, a strategy for genes to persist across generations. However, kin selection has limits in modern non-kin groups, where altruism relies more on cultural and social mechanisms. After the 2011 Japan tsunami, volunteers helped strangers regardless of kinship, pointing to broader reciprocal mechanisms. Dawkins suggests such generalized altruism may stem from gene-driven cooperation tendencies, amplified by cultural evolution. For instance, ancient tribes shared hunting spoils to strengthen group cohesion, indirectly boosting gene survival. Modern philanthropy, like corporate charity, may indirectly serve gene transmission through enhanced social reputation. Notably, kin selection isn't static. Environmental pressures can alter altruistic patterns. In resource-scarce ancient societies, families prioritized healthier offspring, while in modern affluent societies, altruism extends to non-kin or global causes, like climate change responses. This shows how gene-selfish logic is reshaped in complex human societies, intertwining biology and culture. Kin selection is also prevalent in human societies. In the 19th century, British explorer John Franklin's Arctic expedition shared food in extreme conditions, with some sacrificing themselves to save teammates. Though seemingly selfless, this protected kin or potential allies, increasing gene survival odds. In the 1970s, sociologist Robert Trivers proposed reciprocal altruism to explain cooperation among non-kin. Primitive tribes built trust by exchanging food or tools, indirectly boosting group survival. Altruism can also spread through indirect reciprocity. In 1998, Swiss biologist Ernst Fehr found humans tend to help those with good reputations, expecting future returns. For instance, philanthropist Bill Gates donates billions through his foundation, improving global health while enhancing personal prestige. Such altruistic acts, though seemingly selfless, indirectly serve gene transmission through social rewards. Dawkins also discusses the green-beard effect, a theoretical gene recognition mechanism. Imagine a gene causing carriers to grow green beards and prioritize helping other green-beard individuals. This gene would spread through altruism. Though rare in reality, this inspires thoughts on how genes use signals to identify cooperators. Humans use language, clothing, or behavioral cues to build trust, a social version of the green beard. The delicate balance of competition and cooperation. Gene selfishness not only fosters altruism but also shapes the complex interplay of competition and cooperation. In nature, organisms compete for resources while cooperating to boost survival odds. Dawkins uses the prisoner's dilemma model to explain this balance. Imagine two vampire bats deciding whether to share blood after feeding. If both cooperate, both benefit, but if one hoards, the other may starve. Theoretically, selfishness seems optimal, but long-term, betrayers may be ostracized. Dawkins cites game theorist Robert Axelrod's simulations, showing the tit-for-tat strategy as an evolutionary stable solution: cooperate initially, retaliate if betrayed, and resume trust if cooperation persists. This strategy is common in animals, like vampire bats sharing blood but refusing to help non-cooperators. Human cooperation also has genetic roots. In the early 20th century, anthropologist Bronisław Malinowski studied Trobriand islanders, finding they built reciprocal networks through gift exchanges in the Kula ring. This seemingly selfless cooperation strengthened social bonds, enhancing gene transmission. Dawkins suggests human morality, laws, and even religion may have evolved from gene-driven cooperation mechanisms. This perspective ties genes' selfish logic to the complex structures of human society, revealing the biological roots of cultural phenomena. Moral norms like fairness or justice likely originated from gene-driven reciprocal cooperation. In ancient hunter-gatherer societies, sharing prey ensured future returns, boosting group survival and embedding as moral codes. In the 1980s, anthropologist Hilda Kaplan studied the ape people in the Amazon, finding that sharing correlated with social status, giving generous individuals more cooperation opportunities, indirectly aiding gene transmission. Legal systems reflect this cooperative logic. The ancient code of Hammurabi's eye for an eye punished betrayal to maintain group trust, akin to the tit-for-tat strategy. Modern legal systems continue this by protecting cooperators and curbing selfish harm to groups. Religion, as a cultural phenomenon, may also stem from gene-driven cooperation. Medieval Europe's monastic system encouraged monks to forego reproduction to serve religious communities, enhancing the spread of religious memes through group selection. Dawkins notes that religious doctrines foster group cohesion through belonging and moral guidance, resembling ant-colony collaboration. However, the balance of competition and cooperation isn't always smooth. In modern society, globalization intensifies resource competition, challenging gene-driven local cooperation. The 2019 global trade dispute saw nations erect barriers to protect self-interests, reflecting gene-level tribalism. Yet, international cooperation, like UN climate agreements, shows humanity's ability to transcend genetic limits through rational negotiation. This dynamic balance also appears in technological development. AI development involves competition, nations vying for dominance, and cooperation, open source communities sharing algorithms. Dawkins reminds us that while genes' selfish logic underpins cooperation, human rationality and cultural innovation allow us to redefine cooperation on a broader stage. The balance of competition and cooperation also manifests in sexual conflict. In praying mantises, females may eat males post-mating, benefiting the female nutrition but harming the male's genes. To counter, males evolve rapid mating strategies to reproduce before being eaten. Dawkins calls this a genetic arms race, where different genes within a species compete, forming complex behaviors. Human marriage commitment mechanisms reflect this. In the 1990s, psychologist David Buss found men favor short-term mating strategies, multiple partners, while women prefer long-term commitment, resource security. Marriage institutions balance this conflict through cultural constraints, ensuring gene transmission for both. Dawkins emphasizes that competition and cooperation aren't opposites but strategic shifts by genes in different contexts. The shadow of genes in human society. How do genes influence human society? Dawkins suggests that while culture shapes human behavior, its underlying logic remains gene-driven. Parental devotion to children stems from genes ensuring offspring survival through parental investment. British psychologist John Bowlby's attachment theory shows that infant-mother bonds are not just emotional but a gene-driven survival mechanism. In the 1950s, Bowlby observed orphaned children, finding that lack of attachment led to psychological issues, confirming genes' role in shaping attachment behaviors. Social competition also bears genetic traces. Dawkins notes that human displays like luxury cars or designer brands resemble peacock tails, a gene-driven sexual selection in modern society. Buss research reveals men display resources, for example, wealth, to attract mates, while women prioritize long-term commitment. This stems from genes optimizing different reproductive strategies. Ancient emperors built grand palaces to signal power, much like modern tycoons use philanthropy or luxury goods. Culture itself may be a gene's extended phenotype. Dawkins coined this term to describe how genes influence the environment through behavior. Beavers build dams to alter rivers, and humans create laws and art to shape society. Laws stabilize groups, indirectly boosting gene survival. Art strengthens social bonds through emotional resonance, serving gene transmission. In the 17th century, Dutch painter Rembrandt's portraits of nobility were not just art but a social extended phenotype of status. Genes also shape human morality. Dawkins suggests morality may have evolved through group selection driven by genes. In 1964, the murder of Kitty Genoese in the US, witnessed by dozens of neighbors who didn't intervene, sparked bystander effect research. This showed that altruism in non-kin groups is constrained by environment, but moral norms like courageous intervention are culturally reinforced to overcome genetic limits. Dawkins reminds us that while morality is rooted in genes, culture allows it to transcend them. Memes, replicators beyond genes. In The Selfish Gene, Dawkins coined meme to describe cultural units like ideas, songs, or habits spread through imitation. Memes, like genes, are self-replicating information, but their medium shifts from organisms to minds. This concept expands evolutionary theory and foreshadows cultural transmission in the internet age. Take religion. Medieval Europe's Christian doctrine spread orally, shaping billions' beliefs. Dawkins argues that religious memes succeed due to their infectiousness, offering meaning and promising afterlife rewards to encourage spreading. The 11th century Crusades mobilized millions through religious memes, showing their immense influence. In modern times, internet memes spread faster. In 2011, the Doge Shiba Inu image went viral for its humor and simplicity, becoming a classic meme. Meme spread mimics gene selection. Dawkins writes, memes survive through competition in the cultural pool. Successful memes have high fidelity, easy to copy, high output, easy to spread, and longevity, durable. The Beatles' song Yesterday persists due to its simple melody and emotional resonance. Complex philosophical theories, however, have limited meme impact due to their difficulty. Memes may also interact with genes. Dawkins suggests cultural memes can influence biological evolution. Humans' preference for sweets, rooted in genes seeking high-calorie foods, is amplified by modern advertising memes, for example, fast food ads, contributing to obesity. In the 1990s, U.S. obesity rates rose from 15% to 30%, partly driven by cultural memes. This shows that while memes are independent of genes, they can shape biological behavior. The meme concept reframes culture's essence. Dawkins writes, "We think we create culture, but culture may be using us to spread itself." This insight explains cultural transmission and questions human behavioral autonomy. In an information-saturated era, selecting beneficial memes is a new challenge for humanity. The Gene Game and Humanity's Future. The Selfish Gene is not just a scientific work but a philosophical reflection on life and humanity. Gene selfishness has shaped life's diversity, but human consciousness allows us to transcend genetic directives. Dawkins urges, we can rebel against the tyranny of genes. Through reason, cooperation, and cultural innovation, humans can redefine their destiny. In the 19th century, Charles Darwin's voyage on the Beagle observed Galapagos finches, uncovering natural selection secrets. His On the Origin of Species laid the groundwork for Dawkins' theories. Today, at the pinnacle of genetic science, CRISPR technology enables gene editing to treat diseases like cystic fibrosis. In 2020, the Nobel Prize in Chemistry honored CRISPR's pioneers, marking a new era of human control over genes, a triumph of both genetic power and human ingenuity. Yet, technological advances pose ethical challenges. Gene editing could widen social inequalities, like designer babies, raising fairness concerns. Dawkins warns that gene selfish logic could be amplified through technology, requiring rational restraint. The 2018 Chinese scientist He Jiankhui's gene-edited baby experiment sparked global criticism, underscoring ethical importance. How will we balance gene selfishness with human coexistence in the future? Gene theory also prompts us to rethink social structures. Dawkins suggests human cooperation stems from gene-driven group selection, but globalization challenges this. Global issues like climate change and pandemics demand cooperation beyond kinship. The rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines in 2020, driven by global scientific collaboration, showed humanity's potential to transcend genetic limits. Dawkins writes, humanity's uniqueness lies in using culture to counter genes' short-sightedness. Life's game begins with genes, but human wisdom makes us the players. From peacock tales to human civilization, gene selfishness has driven billions of years of evolution, yet it has also birthed reason and creativity. The selfish gene not only explains life's origins but inspires us to ponder, how will we use wisdom and cooperation to write humanity's next evolutionary chapter? On the chessboard of genes, we are both pawns and players.